What is going on, everybody? Welcome to First Person Shooter History and our second episode in this very exciting series in which we are going to explore, examine, and otherwise enjoy countless titles in the history of today's most popular video game genre. Each episode, we're going to take an individual game, learn all about where it came from, discuss the good and the bad and what impact, if any, it left on first-person shooters or gaming as a whole. And today, we are hyper-warping back in time to talk about Star Raiders. Enjoy. Star Raiders was released in 1979 by Atari for their 400 and 800 computer models, the first models of the Atari 8-bit family. Looking back at when Star Raiders was developed and released, it's hard to imagine how a game like this would have even existed yet. To the point, you could almost have a convincing argument that the game itself actually came from outer space and was left here by its own alien characters. Limitations of computers at this time, this game had to run on 8 kilobytes of memory. That's over 500,000 times less than your average low-end desktop computer today. Doug Neubauer, the software engineer who programmed this game, to you, sir, all I have to say, you got some mad skills. In Star Raiders, you control a weaponized spacecraft, and your objective is to wipe out enemy fighters before they wipe out your populated star bases. You move through 3D space with the use of your engines. Your viewpoint is as if you were in the cockpit, and you have free aiming with the use of a targeting reticule. The number of enemy fighters and number of star bases you have to defend increases the higher level of difficulty you select, and you also have to manage fuel resources because if you run out of energy, you're stranded in space and nobody's coming to find you. You can port at friendly star bases to refuel or repair damaged equipment such as your shields or targeting system, but this takes time. Enemy fleets are not going to just stop and wait for you, they just keep right on attacking while you're doing this. Now, if you look at this game, it's very obvious the author had a very strong passion for space-oriented science fiction, and the content is the closest I think anybody has ever come to towing the line and infringing copyrights of so many different media franchises at one time. Many of these concepts are straight out of Star Wars. Lightspeed is now a hyperwarp. The Death Star is now a base star. Long-range scan is based on a concept from Star Trek. One of the enemy crafts you have to combat in this game is called a Xylon fighter, and it looks really similar to a TIE fighter. Xylon being a word strikingly similar to Cylons, the main antagonist of a third space series, Battlestar Galactica. Must be a coincidence, right? I mean, this looks a lot like a TIE fighter. You know what? Screw it, it is a TIE fighter. This is Star Wars. The Cylons have traveled through a breach in franchises and hijacked a bunch of TIE fighters from the First Order. You are Kylo Ren, Supreme Leader, and there is no way in hell somebody is screwing up your franchise's continuity for a second time. These Cylons are going down. But it's not over yet, because the original Empire has traveled through time and they have brought the Death Star to destroy you. Lucky for you, maintenance still hasn't fixed that annoying reactor problem, so you can just blow it up like usual. Heck, you could even blow up your own starbase, because you're Kylo Ren, and you're always pissed. Anyhow, guys, in all seriousness, this game is phenomenal for the time it came out in so many ways, and it absolutely deserves the score it's going to get, so let's do this. Graphics, 1979. That's all I should have to say. This came out in the 70s. Look at this. Color 3D outer space dogfighting. If this game had come out 10 years later, you could have looked at it and said, yeah, that looks good. I would buy this. Let's put this in perspective. This game came out at a time when games like Pac-Man couldn't make it out of the arcade to a home system because engineers couldn't figure out how to make it run on consumer hardware. Because Pac-Man was too demanding. Pac-Man was demanding. Pac-Man Star Raiders. Get the idea? 3 points for graphics. Easy money. Gameplay. This thing had 4 difficulty levels, and they work really well. Novice is a very respectable introduction for a new player. Your ship can't be destroyed, your autopilot functions for hyperwarp, and it's enough challenge you can enjoy the game, but also be able to get used to it. As you step it up to the higher difficulties, Pilot, Warrior, Commander, it gets a lot more difficult and provides for a very challenging experience. Now, there is something about this game which I wish was different, and that was this. There are points in a combat sequence when something blows up and the computer has to render this occurrence on the screen. The game noticeably lags, and it does it pretty much every time this happens. Now, I looked into this, and to sum it up, this is a limitation of the hardware related to the architecture of the processor of the computer that this game runs on contains, and what's important to understand about this is that no level of skill or magic programming could have made any difference with regard to this aspect. It would have had to be the case where you sacrificed some other element of the game or not have the game at all to do something about this delay. Now honestly, on playing the game for what it is, this is pretty minor because largely, and this is probably hard to understand unless you're playing the game for yourself, but the lag is handled very well. It doesn't bother you once you're used to it. It's like it's just part of the experience. When something blows up, everything just slows down for a moment and you can take all of it in. Nevertheless, it's in there, so I'm noting it. Mostly in case you ever get your hands on the original version, you experience this. It's normal, it's like that, it's always been like that, and again, it's handled in such a way that doesn't take you out of the experience because it's there, and that's very important. And on a larger note, that's something that you notice about this game. It's all the attention to little details, like how parts of your ship get damaged and you lose certain functions, which would happen if this were real, and it makes your objectives more difficult. Honestly though, I didn't realize how significant all this detail was until I was able to find an original manual, and I can just say the way the manual is written, you can just tell the author cared so much about this. Remember, this guy didn't own the rights to this game that he worked on. He worked for Atari. Atari made all the profits off this game. He just wanted to make the game for making the game. He had a passion for this work of art that he wanted to create, and that's how you end up with a game like this that gets all these little things just right to create a very immersive experience, and Star Raiders, that's exactly what it does. I'm giving it 4 points for gameplay and 1 more point for the story. Lastly, sound. The icing on the freaking cake for this amazing game. The alarms, the weapons, the explosions, they all sound fantastic. And this is at a time when games generally for sound, if they had sound at all, it was like a beep or a boop. You know what I'm talking about. These old games didn't have anything with regard to a soundtrack or actual sound effects, but this thing did. The audio processor utilized in Atari's home computers was the same type of technology used in Atari's arcade systems at the time. And when this technology was taken advantage of, as it clearly was here, games were able to produce really high quality sound effects. And it's those last little bits that just added the experience and create a very high level of immersion that you see here. Star Raiders is going to get 2 points for sound and a total score of 10 out of 10. Guys, this game is truly one of the most influential titles of all time, and it doesn't always get credit for that, but it needs to. Not just for first-person shooters, but so many other genres as well. Shoot-em-ups, flight sims, space sims, even strategy games. There are active, real-time strategy elements to this game that defending star bases and managing resources. Now this is eventually ported to a ton of other systems over the years. Out of all of them, the Atari 5200 version is generally considered to be the most true to the original, but there are a ton of clones, remake efforts, and spiritual successors that have come out over the years that vary widely in quality. It was one of those games that was really ahead of its time and nobody really saw it for what it was when it came about. In hindsight, in fact, this game is credited for a large part of the success of Atari's personal computers. Those things were meant for games, but Star Raiders is one of the reasons a lot of people wanted one over a competitor's machine. Now, to me, this game, if you're somebody in the video game industry today, you look back on this game and you go, you know what, this game, that was a sign. This game was a sign that games aren't just some stupid consumer product. When we make a quality product that innovates and provides a quality, exciting, immersive experience, these things will be very well received and they can make us a ton of money. Unfortunately, it wouldn't be until much later that developers began to realize this because of course we all know you had the crash of '83 that really shook the industry to its core. But you win some, you lose some. At least Star Raiders has its place in the history books. Guys, I want to thank you for watching my video. If you haven't seen episode 1, which covers Mazor, be sure to check that out. Tune in next time where we're going to be talking about another Atari classic, Battlezone. Hit that subscribe button so you'll never miss a single game, and I'll see you right back here next time for episode 3.